Captain America, and
I have seen it, and I recall the kayfabe episode about
yeah,
that.
yeah, they did an episode, a whole
But like
episode of it.
they were just kind of like talking about how like the interior wasn't like didn't sell what the didn't give you what the cover
Right,
sold or
right,
whatever,
right,
you know.
right. But the cover was so awesome.
Yeah, is that him on the cover right there?
This is all Mike Zeck.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty. I've seen that before.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's got a
he's
little bit
done
of
a
a Frank
little bit of
Miller vibe.
Batman.
It kind of looks a
Uh,
little bit like Frank Miller.
the cover does, but interiors, he's nowhere near like Frank Miller. I would say he's more like Bart Sears.
You don't think he looks a little bit like oh who's that guy who always inks over freaking him that took over Daredevil at the very end or whatever?
I don't know. John Beatty's thinker on this.
Hmm. It's pretty
But he
good though.
also did that. He also did that Spider-Man, that thing where Craven takes over being Spider-Man.
I haven't followed Spider-Man in years.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
All right.
Go
Let's
ahead.
start.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. You're hanging out with Joe Leonardo and Alexander Turbin. This is Comic Books from Coast to Coast. I'm over here on the West Coast. I'm Joe Leonardo. I'm hanging out with my friend Alexander Turbin. He's over on the East Coast, and we're looking at some really cool comic books today, and we're looking at some really awesome comic book creators. On Alex's side, we're going to be looking at Mike Zeck, one of the all-time interesting comic book artists, one of those people that falls on a wall that, like, not necessarily doesn't have like the cloud as like a lot of other people, but has an undeniable talent that has to be observed. And we're here today to take a look at his stuff. And on my side, we're going to be looking at Joe Quesada, who is another one of those guys who's like classically good, but never really quite seemed to climb that wall to becoming like super profoundly like viewable or like, to where people like really look for his stuff on a like really big way. But still a guy who did a lot of great work and who's undeniably talented.
Yeah, definitely. So we had the poll last week, and Arthur Adams pretty much crushed Joe Madureira, right?
It's not hard to imagine.
I only started a couple days ago because I've been swamped this week, but yeah, he pretty much crushed him. Like I think we both knew that anyway. I think Arthur Adams will probably beat most other artists. I'm thinking maybe. Who do you think would beat Arthur Adams?
I don't think it's necessarily about who would beat him. It's just you have to place these guys. Like, obviously, there's no way. You got to put Joe Madureira with Roger Cruz. You know what I mean? For either one of them to have a chance.
Well, yeah, but then eventually we have him go. Then eventually we have him going on, and like
I'm just
say
saying,
we have Arthur Adams and Barry Windsor Smith. Now that would be a
that's what I'm
great
talking
battle.
about. You have to put artists up against the caliber of artists. You know what I mean? Like Joe Madureira is nowhere near the caliber of artist as Art Adams is. You know what I mean?
He is to some people.
But like nothing like Art Adams. Like you got to put Art Adams against a Walter Simonson. You got to put Art Adams against George Perez or someone even a Bernie Wrightson maybe. You know what I mean? Like because they're from that same era and they're from that same type.
Yeah. So you're looking at Joe Quesada. You have what do you have? You have Sleepwalker?
No, this is Ninja.
What is it? Oh, Ninjak. Sorry,
Ninjak #1.
I can't see your side that great.
It's like one of those old school, and it's a beautiful wraparound cover right here. And it's
is it
one of those
foil?
Gold foil or not gold foil, but just like full color foil or whatever.
Yeah,
just gold. Yeah. It's really gorgeous, man. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I love this stuff. I'm so corny when it comes to the '90s, but it's like I loves my gold foil and the foil covers, man. Like there's so much fun. Yeah, and this is an amazing cover right here. Like this is really cool looking stuff, and he is bringing the thunder with this thing for sure.
Yeah, when you're looking at him, I have the Daredevil, Man Without Fear with the Kevin Smiths.
Yeah, that's an awesome looking cover right there too.
Yeah,
like I said, this stuff really reminds me of Frank Miller. It's the blockiness, and that little pug nose that he puts on the characters. You know what I mean? I can't help make that Frank. But look at that. That's really great. That's a great. You don't see that kind of stuff too much in the Marvel. A whole page dedicated to just the face like that. That first
one. This one. Yeah. Yeah. So, but before we start that, you're saying that you don't really know Mike Zeck that much, and you're thinking that he doesn't have the clout that you think. I think that is a perfect example of being a DC guy versus a Marvel guy. Because if you're a Marvel, um, not a Marvel fan, a Marvel zombie, which I'm a Marvel zombie. I'm primarily a Marvel guy. And so I am, I know everything Mike Zeck has ever done. He did the G.I. Joes, he did Secret Wars, but it's like primarily Marvel stuff. So I totally understand why, as being a DC guy like you are, that you're not really in the know of Mike Zeck stuff. He did do
Um,
some
uh,
Batman, but I don't
what
really
what
know exactly what he did.
what GI Joes did you do?
I think he did most of them,
Is that right?
or
Well, I have them.
the
I definitely
beginnings.
had them at some point because I was a big GI Joe guy when they first came out. I
Yeah.
want to say I collected up to like maybe 25 or 30 or something like that before I conked out. And I
Yeah,
remember when
yeah,
all that,
I think that's what he did up till then. I
yeah,
know
'cause
he did most. I don't know whether he did the insides or he did mostly covers. He could have done a lot of the covers, but I know he
he
did a
was
lot of
saying
stuff.
it was like once they got past the October Guard, it started to go downhill or whatever. I guess that's probably like
Yeah,
where Larry Hama stopped writing on it or something. I don't really know. I'm not that much of an aficionado, but
no,
yeah, those were great. I
I know,
mean,
I don't think I ever picked up an issue of GI Joe.
is that right? Oh my gosh. It was pretty special because like of the commercials or whatever, because it was a comic book that actually had commercials for the comic that were animated. It was pretty
Yeah, yeah,
groundbreaking when it
yeah.
happened. I mean,
Well,
it really was.
they yeah, but they did that because they couldn't promote they couldn't advertise the cartoon or they couldn't advertise the toys. They couldn't do an advertisement for G.I. Joe, so they advertised the comic book instead.
I'll tell you what, dude. My 13-year-old self could care less why it was.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
all I
yeah.
care was
It,
that it was. You know what I mean? And seeing a comic book with a 10-second cartoon advertising each
yeah,
issue was
yeah, it was
outrageous
awesome.
to me. It was so
Did you ever
awesome. Man.
did you ever watch The Toys That Made Us
Huh? I've watched them
on
again and again and again.
on Netflix?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, those are amazing. I love those. Those are
Yeah, I
crazy.
wish they would make more of them, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like there's
yeah.
quite a few more. Like they could do like strawberry shortcake. That was a big one. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, they could
they
do
could
it. They
do
could have done anything.
the Smurfs by whatever it was,
Yeah,
Sanyo
yeah,
or whatever. Like that would have been a cool one to see because I remember when I was a kid, the Smurfs were huge. Like I would go into KB Toy Store and there would just be a display like on the counter, where you paid for your goods or whatever, and it would be like this Smurf like tree of life thing they would build, like, and it was like this massive like set of three tables that rose into the air that were like emulated tree
yeah,
branches, and they all
yeah,
were just populated by Smurfs and Smurf houses and those little
yeah,
freaking plastic
yeah,
Smurf sculptures, and they were like hugely popular because they're kind of like Hello Kitty or whatever. You could get them for like $1 or something. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
kids like
yeah.
collected them like little doodads.
Yeah, and they kept making them. They, kept just like Transformers. They would just come up with some new, brainy Smurf or whatever, just
I
to
loved the
sell
Smurfs
more
growing
stuff.
up. Like, I always wanted to be Lazy Smurf when I was a kid. I was like, there's an actual society where you can just like pick what you want to be, and that's
I
just what you
know,
are for the rest of your life. I was like, that's fantastic. I was like, how do I get
I
to be
know. That's
Lazy
awesome.
Smurf? I just want to take
I
naps in
know,
the afternoon, and that'll be my job.
I know. All right, so let's start talking about Joe Quesada.
Well, I'm over here looking at Ninjak. I don't know. Did you ever check Ninjak out back in the 90s?
I I have I don't I have a couple of issues. I don't think I bought them on the newsstand. Um, it feels like I did. I didn't get every single issue of the number ones of the Valiant books, but I got most of them.
I mean, this book looks fantastic. I mean, you'll get to see it
Yeah,
later on when you look at the show. But I mean, like, I mean that the art. I mean, there's Joe Quesada is an undeniable talent, but I feel like he falls into that same category as your Mike Zeck guy, where it's like he's done a lot of cool stuff. He's been in a lot of cool things, but he's just flown low and never really raised too high on anybody's radar. I mean, he was he's the publisher and editor over at Marvel for
Yeah,
10,
yeah.
15 years, wasn't he?
I think that's why he stopped doing as much artwork because he became the editor in chief and the publisher and whatever. Which I mean, that's great for Marvel because he took over Marvel and brought him into a different direction because he was an editor that wasn't a writer. He was an editor that was an artist. So he did all these new and different things, featuring the art. It's kind of like that Todd McFarlane thing where he says, "What's more important, the writing or the art in comic books?" And he says, um, "It doesn't matter who you get me to get to write." A comic book, but if you have an awesome artist, then he can sell it. I can't remember the exact quote.
No, it's basically
Something about his
because
grandmother. I don't know.
because if you have the art, if you have this really great art, like say you could draw, 10 pages of whatever the heck you wanted to draw, right? And if you put your heart and soul into it, and you gave it to me, you could give it to me with nothing on it, and I could do so much with it. Like, you never know. You're like, or you gave it to Alan Moore, you know what I mean? Like, he could just look at those 10 pages and write on top of them. You know what I mean? Because that's what a great writer could do. A great writer can write, you know what I mean? But a great writer can write all day long, and it doesn't mean that you're going to get an awesome image to go with it. You have to have a great artist for that or whatever. So I understand what he's saying to a certain extent. You know what I mean? Because like a great writer,
he's talking about sellability, and
yeah,
I think sellability for comics only goes so far, or sellability or artistry selling the comics only goes far, and I think Image kind of proves that.
It's
where they
it's
only
a
went so
combination.
far.
I mean, you can take it so far with just the bare bones of something, but it's, as we see with manga and things like that, it's over time, it's the characters that people fall in love with. It's not just the art. The art has to be great, but the characters and the story is what people, we've seen it with, Walking Dead, we've seen it with Invincible, any of the stuff that's been successful in the last, 10 years or so is mostly succeeded less on the merits of it, merely being just the art, and more of it have succeeded on the fact that the characters, over time become interesting and they become valued to the people that are experiencing them. And Chris Claremont,
isn't that the writing? Isn't that the writing though?
It is. It absolutely is. Because Chris Claremont will talk about how, like, when he was doing the X-Men, we could take it in a lot of different directions, and you never knew what you were going to get. And, sometimes he would be thinking, oh, we're going to do this. And everybody in the team would be like, no, that's ridiculous. We can't do that. And then all of a sudden you find yourself going in a completely new direction. He goes, but what? He goes, out of all this stuff, what was very interesting. And I'd watched this on a documentary with him recently, because there was a documentary about Chris Claremont on Amazon Prime that I watched the other day.
Yeah, I've watched it.
He just goes, over time, he goes, these characters become real. He goes, now, I'm not to say like they're real superheroes flying around and whatever, like the universe is, he goes, but their lives and their adventures, he goes, become real in the mind's eye of the people who follow them over time, And he goes, then you become invested. He goes, and then when something happens to Rogue, or when something happens to Jean Grey, they come to the table because they want to know it, and they want them to be okay in the end. They want to know that their friend is going to be all right, and that everything, is okay after this, whatever. And that's what, that's what so many modern, comic book people are not capable of getting. And I think whenever you see it, you see the audience respond in a big way.
Yeah, and especially cliffhangers. I mean, everybody loves a cliffhanger, and that's basically why Batman became the famous for the TV show was a cliffhanger every episode.
Star Trek has a lot of great cliffhangers too.
Yeah, they sure do.
It's a great show. I love Star Trek. But just looking back to this, like, Ninjak was it's basically like, I mean, it's a pretty fun idea, to be perfectly honest. And it's like James Bond, it's very James Bond-ish. I mean, it's an 89 or 90% James Bond. And then the other, like, 10% is that this guy is an orphan who is a ninja, right? So he's like a Interpol James Bond-style agent who also happens to be, the white American ninja guy or whatever from American Ninja, you know what I mean? Back in the 90s or whatever that TV, or not TV, that movie series was, like whatever that thing was called, like you know what I'm talking about, the American Ninja movies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But
Show
Quesada's
Kasugi.
really, yeah. Quesada's like really bumping this thing right here, and like right on this page, it's we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 panels, on one page, and he's doing that Art Adams stuff where these small panels, they look pretty great. There's a lot of really tight, clean, fantastic art, and he's doing this other weird thing that the only person I can equate this to is I think maybe he's looking at Mike Mignola and putting these in, but what it really ends up looking like mostly is P. Craig Russell.
See, I see Todd McFarlane, like especially when you look at these panels here of Matt Murdock, and it's like shadowed on this one side, and it's kind of because he also has like a kind of a cartoony look, kind of like McFarlane has as well.
Oh, I would say yours does definitely, for sure, right there. You know what I mean? But this is Ninjak might be him breaking out and trying to do like a little bit of more of his own thing, like you'll see right here on the left when you get a chance to look at it later, is like he's in this really ornate
I can see that
paneling thing, you know what I mean? And it's very like P. Craig Russell, dude. Like,
it really does.
He's like the only guy I can think of.
Who does the inking for that?
Actually, there's no credits on this first one, but in the second issue, which I'm assuming the second issue.
No credits in the back.
No, there are no credits. I searched the entire thing. Not even in the indicia does it have like the color credits and the inking credits or anything. And I think it might be because they're trying to pack pages in, and then they can't do anything on the front or back covers because it's foil.
Maybe,
you know what I mean.
This is inked by Jimmy Palmiotti. When was that done? This is 98.
I'm pretty sure this is as well, because here's the second issue, and it's got Jimmy Palmiotti as the inker, and John Cebollero as the colorist, and they're both really dope. You know what I mean? They're doing really cool looking stuff. And Joe Quesada, he's amazing, man. I think he's freaking badass.
I was never a huge fan, but he's definitely a competent, quality artist. You know what I'm saying?
It's like it's just like anything. I think when the more interested you are in what you're doing, the more you're going to get something that is, exceptional or whatever, you know what I mean, or like less of a jobber for work or whatever, and you could just tell that he was really putting like a lot of work into Ninjak. I mean, he really is working hard, like coming up with interesting cameras. He's really, that stuff too. Like, look at that Daredevil. That's really great looking, man.
The kid falling.
Mm-hmm. That's dude. Like, I would be happy if my art, looked like that all the time.
Yeah. Oh, he's definitely awesome. I would never say he's not awesome, because he definitely is awesome. I'm just, for my own personal taste, like I would never and have never thought out Joe Quesada in anything else. If I like an art, I would say like my top 25. I've done that for, but after that, I'm not really going to do that for Quesada.
Oh, for sure. Like I said, I don't really like to necessarily categorize everything like that. But I feel like there's something to be taken away from everybody who's good. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, definitely.
There's nobody who's good that like isn't worth looking at from time to time. Like sometimes people just come up with little bits of brilliance, and like maybe it might just be one panel, might just be a great looking eye, it might be a great looking hand. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And I really, appreciate that kind of stuff. There's some gorgeous storytelling happening on this page with this little like crippled dude in the wheelchair here, and he's just like this sort of like Dr. Death freaking what's this guy reminds me of? Bent Cranium from Speed Racer. He was bent cranium. That's how it is. Bent cranium. Dr. Bent Cranium from Speed Racer, who was like created the like speed inductor engine or whatever. And I always like these like wheelchair bad guys, you know what I mean, who are like sort of innocuous with their non-physical nature or whatever, but like have these like, you know, incredibly powerful minds, you know, like it's a little, always gives you a little bit of that like Blofeld from Spectre kind of thing or whatever, you know, like
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
with the white cat, you know, and petting the white cat in his lap or whatever, that kind of thing. But yeah, man, I
This,
thought Ninjak was fantastic. I love, you know, like I'm all about when so P. Craig Russell right here. No, I'm all about whenever you like you see like comic book guys like trying to like, you know, do the comics that they were doing when they were kids or whatever, you know what I mean? And Ninjak just feels like something he probably made up a long time ago, you know what I mean? Like one of those ideas you have when you're a
I don't
teenager.
think he created. I don't think he created Ninjak.
No?
I don't think so. I think it's. I mean, does it? Who wrote that?
I could look in the second
Ninjak
one
was
there.
one of Acclaim's first things. So I don't
It
think
says
that they would have.
Mark Moretti. Oh, see, I didn't know that. I thought Ninjak was like one of his original creations.
No. I don't think any of the Acclaims were artist created
Well, this is
characters
Valiant.
like you had. Yeah, Valiant, right? Well, Acclaim bought Valiant afterwards, but
Yeah, okay. I
yeah,
know. Yeah.
Valiant had Solar, you know,
Yeah, they had
Exo, Turok. So they had
Magnus, the
a
robot hunter
combination.
or whatever.
Yeah, they had a combination of that old. Um, I can't remember what company first published them, but they
Yeah,
had a
but
couple of new ones.
I was gonna say, like, I think they had some original stuff in there too, though. But I mean,
But they
honestly,
were but
I
they were
couldn't say
Jim
from the
Shooter.
authority.
They were Jim Shooter's creations.
Yeah, because I'm gonna say, like, didn't they have like the Harbingers and all that stuff?
Yeah, I'm quite sure. Like oh, what's his name? The Eternal Warrior and his brother there. I just
Yeah,
did reviews of these two,
is it like
and
Mr.
those were
Midnight or something like that, or Captain Midnight or something, Mr.
yeah
Midnight or something.
Midnight Man and
Midnight Man, yeah.
who were the brothers were um he had like a sidekick, a kung fu sidekick, and that was Barry Windsor Smith created that.
I don't
And
remember that.
yeah, Eternal Warrior was created by um, Jim Shooter. So they had a few, but I don't think they would have had Joe Quesada create a brand new character. I'm not sure. I don't know that for sure, but
Yeah, I just thought at the time I felt like it was a really cool, really original idea. Like
yeah,
you know, it's like essentially it's like half James Bond, half Ninja Gaiden. You know what I mean? Or like
yeah,
you know, like Shinobi or whatever, like one of those video game characters. You know, and it's a fun idea
yeah,
to bring to a superhero. Like it's hard to do. Like I mean, like Danger Girl tried to kind of do that same thing too. You know, where it's sort of a world traveling, like espionage and adventure kind of thing or whatever. You know, more so than like, you know, the normal superhero vibe. It's got much more of a Johnny Quest kind of feel or something like that, you know,
right.
Tomb Raider, that kind of thing. And those are fun, but I feel like you have to be really good to pull off that kind of thing. Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Because it entails so many, like you're drawing much more like realistic environments and stuff like that, you know, like
Yeah,
when you do something like that, you're not going to be drawing aliens in space, or you're not going to be drawing giant monsters in cities, you know what I mean? You're just going to be drawing cocktail parties, and you're going to be drawing speedboats, and you know what I mean? You're going to be drawing
yeah,
helicopters and, you know, bars, you know, and with like, you know, tons of alcohol that you have to like get right in the back on the shelves and stuff like that, you know, like
yeah.
that stuff is challenging to do, you know, trains.
He really does pack panels into the page, though, doesn't he? Like
Yeah, he
there's
really does, man.
seven here, seven on this page, seven on this page. It's like a set between 7 and 8. And this is Kevin Smith doing the writing. So yeah, that must just be his thing, where he likes to cram the pages with different panels.
He's a pretty dense writer too. You know, Kevin Smith is a very dense writer. So let's
I
look
like
at
his
Mike
writing.
Zeck and let's look at that stuff. Let's kind of compare it to what we've been looking at. That's a great shot
Exactly,
right
Mike
there.
Zeck. Yeah. So I'm a little flabbergasted that you don't know Mike Zeck.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't have enough crosshatching.
A little,
There's no cross hatching
no,
on it. Yeah.
that's one of the things that I was going to say about him is that when I talk about like a clean artist, like him or Bart Sears, or who else would you say is like just a really clean artist?
Well, I mean, Quesada leans there, but he puts some hatching on his stuff, so I can't
He's got
include
the
him.
hatching and stuff,
But
but
Magnolia or whatever, like Frank Miller definitely does that with just the big bulky shadows and that kind of thing.
yeah, yeah.
Um, you know, they're out
But
there.
I mean, I love his covers. He's pretty well known for his covers too. And I mean, I assume this is all airbrushing stuff. I mean, this is 1986, which was probably the best year in comic books. 1986, I think. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's a good
it
one.
had
That's
Dark
a good
Knight,
one.
it had Born Again, Watchmen. I can't think of a better year.
It's funny because
But
I was thinking like there was part of me that wanted to put 93 on the title next to Entropy Alliance or whatever, just because
oh yeah,
just because it's so that era or whatever.
yeah, yeah. Um, but you never read or got Secret Wars?
I mean, I have a few of them, but I never really got into it or whatever.
Yeah,
I bought
yeah.
I definitely had the symbiote, the Spider-Man symbiote, that's like a Secret Wars. That's Secret Wars #1, isn't it?
I don't know which one that is.
Doesn't he get his symbiote in the first issue of Secret Wars?
I
Like
can't
the
remember.
black Spider-Man costume or whatever?
Yeah. It could be. It could be. Although it's not on the cover, right?
But no, it is. Yeah, it is. It's all gangway. New Spider-Man's coming through, and he's like swinging on a web or something like that. It's
Yeah,
like
no, that's not Secret Wars. That's a Spider-Man issue.
Doesn't that lead into the first issue of Secret Wars? I always thought they were all connected.
No, it's because he gets the black costume in Secret Wars, and then he comes back to Earth and he has the symbiote, but you don't know it's a symbiote at the time. But I believe because that's the first cover appearance of the black Spider-Man costume, aka Venom. But then so I think the Secret Wars is the interiors. He might get it in the first issue.
Yeah, I'm not enough of authority on that to give anything too, like critical. I mean, I'm just I have a vague remembrance. I definitely bought it when it came out. I was thinking that was part of the Secret Wars thing, but I could be wrong, for sure.
Yeah. But Punisher was one of the very first comic books I got. I must have started reading comics in '86. Maybe
I go way back, dude. Like I go all the way back to the 70s. I go all the way back to 76 or 75 or something like that.
Right. But does that? Because I was thinking about that. What was the issue where I decided that comic books was a medium that I really loved and could get into? And for me, I got this and I liked it. This is when I was actually in comic books and I was getting them every week and stuff. Not like I had read before. I had read some Howard the Duck and Moon Knight and stuff from back then. But I wasn't like, oh, this comic book thing, this is for me. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. No, I came to it very organically. I told you the story about how my mom took me to the post office and I saw the three, original. I saw Wonder Woman, I saw Batman, I saw Superman, and those #1 editions, the early, Action Comics #1, Detective Comics, and I saw them behind glass. And, at the time, my child mind, I thought my mom was taking me there. And I come to find out years later that she was just going to the mail, place, the post office. And they just happened to have that on display. And it was, that affected me deeply. I started, I had older brothers that could draw, right? And I would ask them to draw things for me. I'd be like, draw me this. Draw me a man in a helicopter, right? And what I would do is I would cut it out. They would draw it with a red pen or a blue pen or something. And I would cut it out of the paper and I would play with it like a doll, right? And that's kind of where it began. Then it was and then I learned how to color inside the lines. And it was because I wanted to learn because I had looked at my brothers and they did these really nice color pieces. And I was I tried to do it and couldn't do it. And then my mom explained to me oh, the color inside the lines. Okay. And then you get another layer. And then I was buying, I had, discovered superheroes in general. You know what I mean? Like just looking through like comics that my brothers and stuff had, and you just like you see Superman and Aquaman, and it was like those old ads where you'd see them in the little circle in the back or whatever, you know, standing on their little logo piece. And you know, you look at it and you know it's attractive and you don't understand exactly what it is. And then you know, I start buying them on, you know, like road trips or whatever, and I'm like, I'm not really reading them, but I'm just looking at the drawings, you know. And then at some point I have a stack of them, right? And they're all over my room. And my mom goes, hey, you should take all those, put them together and put them in a drawer. You have a collection. Bing,
Right.
and the mouth
Right.
of light goes on in my head. You know what I mean? I'm like,
Yeah.
what? I'm like, I'm 8 years old and I have a comic book collection now? Like, oh, you know, like, this is something I do now. I collect comics.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that's kind of how I came to it. Yeah.
My young brain was never that advanced, I guess. What's funny here, though, is I just noticed this, is Mike Zeck actually does the colors for this, too. So I think it's really cool when an artist does the coloring for the book as well as the art.
Yeah, I think so, too, because they have the most grounded idea of what it should be or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, other people could get carried away with it, you know, and add too much flair and add too much things that the art doesn't necessarily easily support, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes it's better, you know, for an artist to come in and lay down what he sees in his head in the first place, because most artists are approaching it with a painterly eye of some kind in your head. You know, like when you sit down to draw something, you know you're thinking of some kind of like, you know, idea of how color and that kind of stuff works along what you're doing, even if you're just doing stuff in black and white, you know.
Yeah. It's like, because Frank Castle's going back to prison here, and then it shows this kind of a pinup thing of the Punisher.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's black and white, but it's I'm losing my voice. But it's a film that these two guys are watching, so it goes from black and white to a gray, and then they turn the lights on, and so everything's, you know, color again, except for the photos that he's showing of the Punisher. So
That's
he's
pretty
like,
good.
he's using all this black and white and then color, and then like it's black and white for this logo, whatever, and he uses some red.
Well, I think what's really profoundly happening right there is that you know, he's doing some really great storytelling using the color. You know what I mean? He's like using the color to assist the storytelling, you know, like past and present and, you know, that kind of thing or whatever, you know, like, but yeah, that's pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah. Are you pro action line? Like you see how he's hitting him with his elbow, and he's got this action line here and action line with the kick.
When I think about it, I don't always approach it like that, but I don't really think there's anything wrong with that. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I use it.
You know, it definitely just depends on what you're doing. I mean, I don't think personally I could look at my work and pinpoint a ton of that, because I probably lean a little bit more into like, you know, the Rob Liefeld, like say if I don't have very many examples of like a big punch taking place in my stuff, like only like once or, you know, because Six Lords of Sound is music, you know what I mean? Like, so you only have the percussor guy. He's got one big page where he's punching someone like along the lines of the Hulk, along the lines of the Thing. And I approach it much more like it's more like a Rob Liefeld series of manga-esque speed lines, you know what I mean, that I use in the background to, you know, to create the movement or whatever. And the fist doesn't really have a, you know, a line to let you know the movement of it or whatever, you know. I just have a big impact at the bottom.
All over the place.
Yeah.
One of the things
I do that sometimes. Like, here, talk on that for a moment, and I'm going to be right back.
One of the things I love about Mike Zeck is his exaggerated faces and his exaggerated expressions. Like he's got these big, like he's almost, his mouth is full, but it's really just a tough guy look. And that's really one of the kind of the things that he's done, is he's had a tough guy look. And because so much of what Mike Zeck has done, he's done the the GI Joes. He's done all of these military things, and it's all about these tough guys being tough. And you don't get much tougher than the Punisher. But
That's what
here's
I say. It
so
reminds me of Frank Miller in a lot of ways, just because he uses that real
yeah,
heavy stroke on his figures or whatever, and he does
yeah,
really
yeah,
create that, like, that middle-aged, like, kind of like tough guy figure or whatever. Like, his figures don't look like Jim Lee guys, you know what I mean, or like Los Portatio guys that are all like look like they've been working out with a professional workout guy that's trying to make their abs look perfect for a Marvel film or something, you know what I mean? Like, they
I would
look like
say
real dudes, that big round, midsections, and they have
yeah.
heavy upper chests, you know what I mean? And
You
they
know
got big
who
thick necks.
you know who I think was inspired a lot by Mike Zeck? I think Dale Keown was inspired a lot by Mike Zeck. Actually, now that I'm really looking at it, the way he uses his just
I
kind
could
of his
see that.
brushstroke. Yeah, yeah, just like
I
his
could see
his
that for
facial
sure,
features,
especially the
facial
way he spots
features.
blacks.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
just added cross hatching to that, you would have something way similar to what Del Keown does.
yeah, yeah. Well, and he doesn't do any cross hatching. I mean,
No, that's what I mean.
it
Like,
could
but if
be.
you just took that spotted black and you added cross hatching to it, it would start
Yeah,
to look very much along the lines of what Del Keown does. You know what I mean? So I could
yeah,
definitely see that, because Del Keown does have those real heavy figures, and he does spot a lot of black in really, like, beautiful ways, just like that. But then he adds the cross hatching. He adds the Jim Lee West Coast, like, cross hatching thing to it.
right, right.
But I was just noticing
Um,
that, like, when I if I have a figure who's shooting a gun, I will often do these little, like, there'll be like a burst and a trail and then a burst, and you'll
yeah,
get, like, burst and a trail and a burst and a trail, and I do
yeah,
do that, and that's like a direction line kind of thing or whatever. But I don't think I've ever done it too much with punches or that kind of thing.
yeah.
But that
It's
guy's awesome,
it's
man. Like, his
awesome.
art's
He's an
beautiful.
awesome team. He's amazing.
I remember that Punisher cover being like a real
Check that out.
popular. Yeah,
The
that's
colors on
awesome,
here.
dude. It's so rad.
Just the
Yeah, the way
colors.
it goes. Yeah, it's that pink to the yellow to that off, like, bluish green. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, dude, like, and they're great choices. You know what I mean? They're not super obvious. And that's like, like art is so subjective, and I've been thinking about things, like, in really different ways recently. Like, say, artists, we get into, like, you get into, like, recreating the image and the idea, and it's like, oh, I want to do these, like, really awesome backgrounds and stuff, and it's like, oh, like, it's all part of being a good artist. You want to be able to draw couches as good as people, as good as helicopters, as good as motorcycles, as good as muscle guys, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was really recently looking at, like movies and stuff. And what I noticed a lot is, like, say, because in film, everything isn't in focus. It can't be. You know what I mean? So when the main character is, like, on screen, everything in the background has to be out of focus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, recently, I've been getting into, like, trying to, like, bring, like, a slight amount of that into my stuff or whatever, right? So, like, I've been getting into doing just, like, I'll just, like, do these, like, I'll come in the backgrounds, and when my characters are in focus, I'll just do these, like, circles and,
Check that
like,
out.
just, like, different, like, just try to imply, like, out of focus things behind you, because, like, that's what the eye mostly catches, like, you know what I mean, is, like,
Yeah.
say there'll
Yeah.
be
I hear you.
lights and things like that, that'll be, like, and they'll just appear as, like, blobs of light, you know what I mean? Like, or circles of light in the background, and
You need
I
to do
think, like,
some. You need to do some digital art. Some digital art. That's how that would be done.
well, I think anyone could do. You don't need digital art. There was never digital
You
art
don't
for
need it,
100
but
years. And,
it would be so much easier just
like,
to draw it
I'm
and
just
then
thinking,
do the
like,
digital stuff.
I just been kind of, like, approaching, like, my backgrounds like that, to where, like, if I'm in a room and I need to establish, hey, this is a room and it's a diner and there's people in a diner, and obviously I'm going to draw the diner. But I think after that, like, when you're getting close-ups and stuff like that, it's not always necessary. Sometimes it could be too much or whatever to have every single shot have everything in it every single time. You know what I mean? And you have to
Yeah,
learn when
yeah,
to pull back and when to give people information and when to really focus on what's happening in the story. You know what I mean? And when to
yeah,
give them that.
yeah,
Like when I did Six Lords of Sound, it takes place at a concert. But if you look, there's only like maybe 6 times where you're really aware that it's in a Coliseum like concert environment. You know what I mean? Because most of the time I'm just focusing on the action or whatever, and the things that are taking place. And then every so often you step back and you pull back and you remind people like, oh, this is happening in a big Coliseum with a whole bunch of people watching it or whatever, you know what I mean? And it's tricky to know exactly how to do that stuff. But, it's rad when you see like how like awesome artists, handle these kind of things like so effortlessly. And then, it just makes me wish like I knew how long these pages took for these guys, you know what I mean? And, how quickly they could breeze through this kind of thing. Did it take them days at a time? Were they able to do one of these in the afternoon? You know what I mean? Like, how long does it take you to decide what the colors should be? Did you have to do them more than once? Like that kind of stuff.
right, right. I'm just now noticing how 80s action movie this Punisher comic is.
Oh yeah, dude, for
Like,
sure. It's totally like who am I thinking of? The Death Wish guy or whatever.
yeah, yeah. Or, I mean, this totally should have been Arnold Schwarzenegger should have done a Punisher movie. I
Yeah.
have no idea why he didn't.
Well, they didn't have their crap together. You know what I mean? Like,
Like, yeah, yeah,
because I mean, they did make that Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie in that time. I don't know if you ever saw that, but
yeah. I saw it. Obviously,
the Louis Gossett Jr. or whatever,
yeah,
and
yeah,
Dolph Lundgren.
yeah. There's
It
actually
was
some cool parts to it,
I
but
was gonna say it was not the worst movie in the world. It was pretty fun for what it was back in its time. But Marvel just had that stigmatism to it, like they could never get it right originally. Like
yeah,
they had
yeah,
that terrible Captain America movie, they had all those horrible TV versions. And then DC's making the Batman movie, they're making Superman the motion picture, with these amazing guys and stuff, and it just started to feel like Marvel was never gonna really catch up. But I was really recently watching. I watched this podcast sort of documentary series on that's on Amazon Prime that was delving into how the Marvel films came together. And I don't know if I discussed this with you. I might have. I'm bad at repeating myself with people.
yeah,
But it was all about how Kevin Feige was like. How he was the gopher on X-Men. Like he was a nobody
yeah.
gopher on X-Men, and he would just get everybody whatever they asked for, their donuts or cigarettes, whatever, and he had so much latent Marvel information in his head that he was such a huge Marvel fan, right? He'd just been following the comics his whole life that he became Avi Arad's number one go-to guy when it came to the lore of the universes. And, over the period of the first 3 films in the Spider-Man movies, he made himself so incredibly invaluable with his just like complete knowledge of Marvel that's kind of how he got the job as the head producer of the films, because he was able to pick and choose exactly which moments to represent and just really understood how to bring the momentum to the few characters that they had left, because they had let all their best stuff out of the stable, you know what I mean? And they had just sort of, had these few characters left, and it just was like a coincidence that they happened to be the basis of the Avengers.
Right, yeah. All
It's
right.
kind of fascinating, and you just find
Yeah,
out how,
yeah,
like,
definitely.
because it's like that stuff doesn't happen by accident, it takes a lot of thought and a lot of planning, and, it takes an obsessed nerd, I guess, to get something like that out of but we're all,
Yeah,
just big comic book fans. We're all big comic booker nerds. We all want to make the Marvel universe into films.
yeah, yeah, definitely. All right, so let's wrap this up. Mike, Zeck, and Joe Quesada this week
Yeah,
for our
super
poll.
awesome artist. I'm sure Alex is
Yeah,
going to put up a poll, and you guys let us know what you think. Like both guys doing great work. Both guys have amazing colorists. Both guys working with amazing inkers. Awesome looking books. Super
I'm
fun stuff from back in the 80s
pretty
and
sure that's
90s.
Mike Zeck.
Yeah, that's awesome. And not even entirely dissimilar characters. The Punisher and Ninjak. Both tough guy fighters who use a lot of guns and bullets and death to handle their bad guys.
Yeah, yeah.
I
All
always
right,
love
so
that
you
stuff
want to
myself. Yeah, I'll do my little books here. And just so you guys know, Alexander Turbin and I are both comic book creators, and together we're the creator of Entropy Alliance. This is the experimental comic book, Entropy Alliance #1. This was created by a handful of like really amazing artists: Jamie Barrows, Alex DeKaiju, Alexander Turbin, Swayze Crazy, Jake Quirk, Mangle Dangle, Charles Degalato. Just a lot of really fantastic artists, all doing really cool work. This is the sort of inspiration for the book that we're going forward with. Really cool characters, really cool story. And, when the second issue comes out, you're going to want to get your hands on the first issue just so you'll understand everything that's happening. And maybe we'll work something out where we can package this one in with the second issue when you buy it so that you can have the whole story and get everything straight. I'm also the creator of Six Lords of Sound. And, believe it or not, this is my first comic book I ever made. And not to brag, it is 36 pages of awesome, over-the-top, full-color comic books, just like you would get back in the day. It's like, this was like, if I was an Image creator, this would have been my, day one creation for Image Comics. And I'm very proud of that fact that I've never made anything before. And this is my first example of professional comic book underground making. And I'm just going to go forward to this, Phil. You can expect comics to just get better than this from this point forward. Alexander Turbin and I are now working together, and we're making everything amazing. And comic books are going to be really just coming out that you're going to want to get your hands on. Stuff like Random Access's Morgrim the Cyclops, the new Random Access with so many amazing new artists getting involved. I know Jamie Barrows is working on an amazing new thing called Cyberbarian. Is that what it is? Or
I think something like that.
Something like that. It's just fantastic. He's crossing like 1990s like cyber characters with classic 1960s, 1950s like barbarian stuff. Jamie does that barbarian thing better. He's the publisher and the sort of the mind behind the Crumb books, and we're both involved in those with him. He's coming on board and doing some fantastic work with Alexander Turbin, along with a lot of other amazing artists. Willie Draws, just a lot of really fantastic guys. I know Doghouse has done stuff. Guys that just, you want to see their stuff. You want to get your hands on the amazing art that's involved. Why don't you open that up and let's take a look at what's inside that real quick, Alex.
Random Access with pages by me, but also by Shane Evans, who is
that's all new Queller story right there. And this is almost like you could approach Random Access like a modern version of an old school thing like heavy metal. Like you're getting, a few different eclectic ideas in a story. You're, being allowed to example a few different comic book creators' ideas of what comic books are and what they like to do. And it's really fascinating. Everybody's doing really wonderful stuff. Have you seen the latest Roscoe and Kitty with the Road Warrior thing or whatever? I'm excited for that. That's going to look great when it comes out. So Random Access, and then also if you're a comic book creator, be sure to send us some stuff and maybe contact Alex because he's always looking for people to be involved with Random Access.
Definitely, and you can get this at my Patreon at patreon.com/Alexander Turbin. And also I got a new website coming out.
I was going to say the new website,
yeah.
I went to it earlier before the show. I couldn't get in, but it had a sign up saying, "Please come back. We're working right now. And we have big things coming or whatever." I was like, "That's great."
I'm working on it. It's exploding my brain because it's a lot of like CSV, all of this website jargon, and it's blowing my brain apart. So I'm working my way through it, and it'll get there. So it'll be cool.
You're gonna figure it out. We're all gonna benefit from it. And if you need help, we'll work it out. We'll talk on the side. If you need help, like running it financially, I can help out. So no worries about that, dude. I'm really excited to be involved. I'm really excited to see that coming together. Once again, this is Comic Books from Coast to Coast, and you're hanging out with Alexander Turbin and Joe Leonardo. Today we're looking at Mike Zeck and Joe Quesada. Be sure to go and look at the show on YouTube later. Give it a thumbs up. Give it a like. Give Alexander Turbin a follow. And be sure to vote and let us know what you think about these two artists. If you want to drop a comment We always really appreciate that. Make sure you give a thumbs up, and you guys have a great day. You want to give them the last of the marching orders, or should I do it, Alex?
You can do it.
All right, you guys know what it means. Everybody out there is doing some good stuff. Everybody out there is working hard, especially all the artists we work with. They're always out there working. They're always out there making new things. And it's so much easier to destroy stuff than it is to make it. So, when it comes to creating things, I say keep on creating.